Welcome to the Passionpreneur Experience. I am your host, Dr. Diana S. Gray. This is where purpose meets strategy, where what's inside of you gets activated. I'm so glad you're here, and I want to begin this podcast with a statement that may shift how you see everything moving forward. You see, this is not a new beginning. Pause for a moment and really sit with that. This is not a new beginning. Because so often we are told that in order to move forward, we have to start over. We hear, start fresh. Begin again, turn the page. But what if that's not the full truth? What if you're not starting over at all? What if everything you've experienced, everything you've learned, everything you've walked through has been preparing you for this moment? Nothing wasted. Nothing accidental, nothing without purpose. So instead of seeing this season as a beginning from zero, what if it's actually an activation of everything that's already been built within you? I'm here to tell you, 10 years ago, April 2016 to be exact, I made a decision that changed my life. You see, at that time, I was a tenured choral teacher in a local school system. I've been working for 12 years and I was working at a high school. And I will never forget one Monday in the month of May where I received some bad news. So I thought at the time. My principal called me into his conference room, and another school administrator was sitting there as well. And he said these words, "Gray, I'm moving in a different direction and I'm posting your job." So I sat there and I said, "Oh, okay." I knew he couldn't fire me. Um, I'm tenured. It would be against the law. And in my mind, I said, I'm moving in a different direction as well. You see, I had gained an undergraduate degree in music education, focused on choral music and piano, classical piano. I had an undergraduate in church music, focused on piano and organ. I had a master's of education in music education, focused on vocal choral music. I had went back to school and did a master's in instructional leadership. I even had gained my education specialist degree in school administration and leadership. So I had stability. On the job, I had structure. I had what many would consider security. But listen, in 2004, right before I graduated with my undergraduate degrees, I experienced the period of preparing for graduations and meeting the requirements to get my state board certification, which required me to do student teaching. And that's when I discovered that the systems in our educational schools and systems, they're clearly not for creatives. There are systems that are designed to keep us in a box. And I said to the Lord, I said, I can't do this till I retire. And I began to write in my prayer journal and create these vision boards. And I said, I want to have my own music academy, my privately owned music academy. I feel like I can offer more to the community through the arts just by simply teaching voice, piano, drums, and all other instruments. So in 2006 is when I actually created officially the business of what is now Montgomery Arts Academy. Before then, I would teach in my parents' home. I stayed at home throughout college, and I actually started teaching private music lessons in 1997. But back to security. When your principal tells you that he's moving in a different direction, that's when I know things shifted. I knew things shifted after earning those degrees and applying for school administration positions. And I had been on 12 interviews and received 12 no's. After seeing that my position as a choral teacher was posted, hearing the teachers talk about it, whispering about it in front of me and behind my back, I knew that it was time for me to take action. But I was scared. I was scared because I was secure with the job. I had great health care insurance. I knew that the paycheck would come at the end of the month every month. I knew that my retirement will be building up. And believe it or not, it wasn't much retirement. It was only at 4%. And I just knew that that was a sense of security. But I knew also that there was greater in me, and the Lord would allow me to experience greater if I just trusted Him and be obedient. And even my dad told me, hey, he said he gonna post your job, move on. You got your business. You making more money in your business working part-time than going to work full-time. And that was the case. I had the documents. I had the money in the bank. I had the tax papers to prove it. I was excelling in my business, especially after the time that I made up my mind that I will not treat my business as a hobby. I was serious about building a business and building legacy. But what held me back was fear. Fear of not being secure. And what also held me back was disobedience. So when I hear my principal say, I'm moving in a different direction, I knew I had a choice. I could hold on to what was familiar, or I could trust what felt like disruption. I can actually believe that what seemed to be disruption is actually direction. And I'm going to be honest, I did not have all the answers. And what I mean by didn't have all the answers, I was like, well, how am I going to replace this income? Or what more do I need to, as far as my income, in order to pay for my health care? There were moments of uncertainty, moments of questioning, moments where I had wondered, what now? And even in those moments, there was something inside of me that wouldn't let me settle. There was a knowing. a sense that there was more in me to build. There was more in me to give, more in me to become. So I chose to move. I didn't move perfectly. I didn't even move confidently every day. But you better believe I was consistent. I did it consistently. And so many of my teacher friends and co-workers, they said, "Great, how did you do it?" I had a made up mind to be obedient to God, my father, and yes, my dad. I had a made up mind to do things out of fear. It's okay to have fear, but take action. So finally, I took that step. I hired myself. And what I didn't realize then, that I wasn't starting over. I was building from everything I already had. Remember, I had the knowledge, I had the skills, I had the degrees. I understood. Excuse me. I understood school leadership. I had it all, and that's where so many people get stuck. We believe that in order to move forward, we need more time, we need more clarity, we need more resources. But the truth is, you already have more than you think. Listen, I had my own standalone building. And I also want to tell you this, the standalone building was paid for. I had no debt. You mean to tell me, and this is what I'm telling myself, you mean to tell me, Diana, that you're willing to stay in this school environment and go through the changes of administration, um, curriculum changing, state assessment changes, and dealing with the diversity of students and teachers, serving the public, and you could do the exact same thing in your own building that's paid for? The only overhead was light bill, gas bill, insurance, marketing, and so forth. I'm telling you that you already have more than you think. You have the experiences, you have the lessons, you have the skills, you have the perspective, you have a voice. But if you don't activate them, guess what? They will stay dormant. So instead of asking, how do I start? Ask yourself, what do I already have that I'm not using? That question changes everything. So you may wonder, what is a passionpreneur and what is it like to be a passionpreneur? Well, I just told you, that's what being a passionpreneur is all about. It's not just about passion. It's about alignment. It's about execution. It's about talking and taking what's already inside of you and building something with it. Stop waiting for perfection. I had to stop waiting for perfection even now, including doing this podcast. There's nothing perfect about this podcast. I had to stop waiting for permission. I had to start moving with intention. And this is what I call your activation season, a season where you stop overthinking and just start moving, a season where clarity comes through action, a season where you trust what's been placed inside of you. Because I truly believe this, God doesn't place something inside of you by accident. Your gifts, your ideas, your vision, they were given to you intentionally. And at some point, you're going to have to trust that. So let me ask you this. What have you been sitting on? What idea have you been delaying? What step have you been avoiding? What decision have you been overthinking? Because this isn't about doing everything at once. It's about taking one step, just one, just that one step. I want to let you know that everything that I do, I try to have an understanding of what the Bible tells us to do. And as I sit here right now, what comes to mind is this very familiar passage from the Bible, Proverbs, the third chapter, and verse 5 and 6. You may know it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And for me, I want to tell you something. That scripture taught me and have me to believe that you will never have the full plan. It has meant taking the next step, even when I didn't fully understand the outcome. Because here's what I've learned. God doesn't always give you the full picture. He gives you the next instruction. Y- Listen, I'm on my way to Carnegie Hall. The first time I was invited to Carnegie Hall, I was just a senior in high school in 1998. I would never forget it. Matter of fact, I had a meeting with the team today, the production team, and I told them today that it was President's Weekend, February of 1998. That was my first and my last time performing at Carnegie Hall with my high school jazz ensemble. I sang the alto line of the selections that we performed, and now I have the opportunity to return to Carnegie Hall, not as a singer, but as a guest conductor in residency, doing world premiere of two of my original pieces. Talking about a full circle. So when the opportunity came for me to be a guest conductor at Carnegie Hall, I just took the step. Believe it or not, I sent an email and I acted as if I was this bad best musician, songwriter, conductor there is in the world. And I said, "Hey, I want this opportunity." And before I could get out of my email box, I received a response and said, "Hey, we've been watching you." And I'm like, how these folks been watching me? To this day, I don't know how they found out about me, but because I took the next step of just sending that email, I was sent a link to have a discussion about the program and the opportunity. The next step was to have an interview. But when I agreed to have that Zoom meeting, it turned into an interview. And at the end of the interview, let me tell you how God is. At the end of the interview, I was already approved to be a guest conductor. Now, of course, we had to go through paperwork and go through the team and all the formalities. But at the end of that Zoom meeting, I can literally call on my family members and those that were close to me and say, "Hey, I'm one of the next conductors of Carnegie Hall. And listen, in just 2 months from now, Talking about full circle. On June the 29th, that's a Tuesday at 8 o'clock, there is a show at Carnegie Hall. And I will be the last presenter of that show with my choral ensemble that I work with every week and perform with. We're traveling to New York City to close a concert with my music. Talking about how God will not give you the plan, but all you have to do is to be obedient and follow his instruction. It wasn't my job how to figure out how to be a guest conductor at Carnegie Hall. It was my responsibility to move in obedience. And you got to trust what's been placed inside of you. You got to take the next step. There's another moment in scripture that comes to mind. And I think about old Moses in the book of Exodus, where he was standing at the Red Sea and everything in front of him looks impossible. Kind of feel like Moses when I saw that opportunity to be the guest conductor at Carnegie Hall. It's like standing at the Red Sea. Like, how am I going to cross this? How little old me in a town called Montgomery, Alabama, is going to be a guest conductor in residency, teaching and conducting her own music, and let alone close out a show, close out the season. Wow. Moses was standing at the Red Sea and everything that was in front of him looked impossible. But I'm here to tell you that God doesn't give him a new strategy. He simply tells Moses to move forward, to stretch out what's already in his hand. And that's the part that always stayed with me. Moses didn't need something new. He needed to use what he already had. And I believe that same principle applies to you and to me. You don't need more to begin. You don't need perfect clarity. You don't need everything figured out. You need to only trust, move, and activate. So whatever God has placed in your heart, whatever idea you've been holding on to, this is your reminder. Take the next step. Ask you these questions again. What have you been sitting on? What idea have you been delaying? What step have you been avoiding? What decision have you been overthinking? After this episode, I want you to do one thing. Take action. Send the email. Write the idea. Do you have a journal? Write it down. Write the idea down. Start the plan. Put some dates next to those things that you want to accomplish. Have the conversation. Whatever your next step is, take it. Do what I did. I sent the email. I had the idea. I started the plan. I had the conversation. I took the next step. You know why? Because this is not a new beginning. This is activation. This is activation. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Passionpreneur Experience. If this spoke to you, be sure to subscribe, share, and stay connected. And I'll see you in the next episode. Remember, you don't need more. You need to activate.